All foreign workers in South Sudan must cease working by mid-October, an order by the government published in a local newspaper. It explains that its purpose is to protect the rights and interests of the people of South Sudan. It went on to say that the NGOs must advertise for the vacant positions. This is bound to have an impact on aid operations in the country. South Sudan is heavily dependent on foreign aid. 1.3 million people have been internally displaced by the conflict, with 4 million facing starvation. International NGO Global Witness said the order was disturbing and risks crippling the economy. This order also poses a threat to the country's economy as it touches South Sudan's economic mainstay, the oil sector, mainly operated by foreign-owned multinationals. Other critical sectors such as banking, insurance and hospitality are also heavily dependent on foreign investment and human resource. South Sudan suffers from a major shortage of skilled workers, with only a quarter of the population able to read and write. Carol Oyola, CCTV.
Well, South Sudan's government has banned the employment of all foreign workers. So is Juba's move based purely on economic consideration or yet another political maneuver? Let's get some answers to these questions. And I'm joined here in studio by John Gachie. He is a journalist and analyst on South Sudanese affairs. John, thank you very much for being here. Now, that move by the South Sudanese government, why the ban? Why now?
Beatrice, there are two ways, from my view, to looking at this. I think one of this is to try and establish certain a playing field in the next phase of negotiation, perhaps to add leverage on the government of South Sudan, indeed in being taken a little seriously. Now, that is external. Internally, is to try and garner a little bit more of support and saying we are here really representing the interest of South Sudanese. And how this will play out is a fairly interesting issue. And why do they come in now? I believe they're trying to stall and perhaps have a hand in the humanitarian relief operations to determine what form, what nature, and how far and how extensive that will be done.
You've mentioned that perhaps the South Sudanese government wants to be taken seriously externally, but of course the question will be, what will be the the impact of that move on South Sudan itself?
Undoubtedly it will be drastic, but I think the government of South Sudan is also trying to leverage itself to try to seek a more better diplomatic recognition and possibly to endear itself to the international community that you've been dealing with us and perhaps trying to have an equivalent movement about the rebels. We are the people on the ground, so you really have to deal with us. And I think it's a way of trying to reassert themselves and perhaps seek, if they can, reassert their sovereignty, so to speak. Now, the impact will undoubtedly be quite major in that I think the humanitarian issue will be brought more to the fore. But then there is another hidden angle in my view. There is also the question of security, the question of linkages between the government, foreign workers, and the rebels, and the linkage.
What impact, though, is this likely to have on South Sudan's foreign relations, given that there are many nationals from regional countries working inside South Sudan, from Kenya, from Uganda, Tanzania, from South Africa? What impact is this likely to have on the country's bilateral relations?
Certainly this will be a bump, and I think this perhaps will draw South Sudan perhaps more animosity, so to speak, for lack of a better term, will bring South Sudan to more ridicule or perhaps more to the fore of its bilateral relations. And primarily with IGAD, primarily with its key trading partners, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Sudan.
Right.
Now, what impact this will have is that they will be hoping that the four countries, so to speak, will be able to review their position vis-a-vis the rebels, vis-a-vis the internal security apparatus, vis-a-vis economy, vis-a-vis sanctions. And I think they are hoping that they will be able to have a more political leverage.
All right. This has not only just affected the, relations between the countries, but also non-governmental organizations. I mean, South Sudan has been in conflict since December of last year. What options, though, do the non-governmental organizations have, particularly since many were dealing with humanitarian issues? And as well, what options do local businesses, have, the ones that were occupied by the foreign nationals?
Now, that Beatrice, is one of the things that perhaps is unfortunate in this. And I think they are weighing that perhaps in exercising this, it's far much better for them in the interim other than having to deal with it in the longer term. And I think the government of South Sudan has indicated that they feel rather uneasy in the way in which the international NGO and multilateral organization have been dealing with them, that they've been kind of patronizing and not taking them seriously. Now, the impact undoubtedly will be major on the humanitarian crisis, on the people of South Sudan. And I think this, in my view, is an unfortunate that the government of South Sudan would be able to do this now without perhaps a fallback position.
All right, John, thank you very much for your input. Let's get in Kofa Ranger, who's standing by for us now inside South Sudan. He's joining us from Juba. Kofa, that whole move now by South Sudan's government, what more can you tell us about the order to ban all foreign workers in Juba?
Well, this is a move that has caught many by surprise. There are so many foreigners who have invested.
All right. We'll leave it there for the moment with Kofa. We understand we are having some small technical challenges, but your analysis of this whole situation, John, I mean, it is going to have a lot of impact, though, as well for the humanitarian situation of South Sudan. What exactly is the government hoping to get out of all this, and what are they going to do now?
Politically, this one, I would imagine that the government would be saying, look, we are looking after your interests, and with all these crises, we are hoping that we'll get more Sudanese employed. So internally, it's a political issue that we are looking after our nationals. We are the government in control, and that all these opportunities coming in. I think they're going to use this from consolidating political power and also trying to sell themselves that they are looking out for the interests of the South Sudanese.
All right.
The effect could be elsewhere. There's been a growth or a growing xenophobic attacks and anti-foreign, workers' sentiments in South Sudan, and it's quite widespread. And now, whether that is true or legitimate, is another matter altogether. But politically, for the government, this would be a good sign that we are looking after our own national interest.
All right, John, we'll leave it there for the moment, but thank you very much for joining us here on Africa Live. John Gachie, a journalist, giving us more insight into South Sudan's move to ban all foreign nationals from that country.